Lyon, 180 AD. An influential bishop called Irenaeus is about to help clarify the Christian message by rejecting most of the Gospels. At the time, there are more than 30 circulating in Christian communities. Irenaeus argues there should be just 4: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
There are 4 Gospels and only 4. 4 like the points of the compass. 4 like the chief directions of the wind. The Church, spread all over the world, has in the Gospels 4 pillars. Christ is at the center of them.
His argument is one that doesn't make sense to most people today. Irenaeus argued that since there were 4 corners of the earth and 4 winds of heaven, there had to be 4 Gospels, and they were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Irenaeus is worried about more than the 4 winds. Christianity is an illegal religion, and the faithful are paying with their lives. Romans are murdering Christians for refusing to sacrifice animals to Roman gods.
Irenaeus is fighting to survive against the Romans, who are persecuting severely the Christian church. And there are cases where individual Christians are arrested and tortured, cases where there's actual massacres.
Among their duties, Roman governors had to keep the people entertained. Killing Christians in spectacularly brutal ways was cheaper than hiring gladiators to do battle.
In Irenaeus' hometown, there were public riots against the Christians, and many were arrested, charged with being Christian, and many confessed that they were, and they were brought into the public arena on holiday and spectacularly killed to entertain the populace.
At the Lyon massacre of 177 AD, Romans murdered as many as 100 Christians. Some maintained their faith to the end.
Among them was a slave woman named Blandina, who, they say, was tortured unbelievably all day in the arena, and nevertheless maintained her witness to Christ in a way that astonished everyone who saw her.
One diabolical device was called the iron chair. By heaping coals under the chair, Romans made it roasting hot, then forced the victims in.
Arami Vrantina hiera pliisis.
Eristiani blemi. Ton ouk. Assez-vous ton?
Iar. Ari apothenem ethelis. Paratiton peda prosthiaphilis.
O the pace. Aidzosi.
The torture and killing of 100 or so Christians at Lyon would have impacted Irenaeus greatly. It would have told him that if you're going to die for the faith, you better understand what the faith is. If you're going to be thrown into a dungeon, if you're going to be tortured or thrown into an arena and torn apart by animals, you better know why that is. And so what then are the Gospels? Is it just these 3 or 4 or 5, or is it a whole bunch? And so this has to be defined. What is the sacred faith for which we're dying?
To help define the sacred faith, Irenaeus chose 4 Gospels from more than 30. Experts don't agree about how this choice was made.
The average Christian said, I want to hear Mark, or I want to hear Matthew. but not very many were saying, I want to hear Thomas or Judas. That's what was happening. Those four were chosen because they resonated with the Christian communities. They resonated with the believers. These are the true words of Jesus, not these other words that you find in Thomas or Judas or some of these other writings.
It's hard to say how these texts were actually chosen. I mean, some people think they were just selected by bishops, and others think it was a kind of sort of bottom-up process of what books people tended to read. It's probably some of both, because the Gospels of the New Testament are a lot easier to read than most of these secret Gospels. They tell narrative stories. They tell about Jesus' baptism and his birth and his life and his crucifixion and his death.
But Irenaeus wasn't just choosing what would make it in. He was attacking the competition. One of his targets? The authors of the Gospel of Judas.
It seems that what bothered Irenaeus in particular about the Gospel of Judas is that here was a gospel written in the name of the person that was the infamous betrayer of Jesus. And how could Gospel and Judas be put together in a title, the Gospel of Judas? It blew his mind, boggled his mind.
It's no accident that somebody like Irenaeus would have rejected the Gospel of Judas and declared it a heretical gospel. Here, Judas in this gospel is the good guy, the one who really understood Jesus, the only disciple who understood Jesus.